Right, we'll kick into it, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely.
Morning, and thank you for coming on the show. Let's say, okay, and I'd really love it to be a discussion and an interactive sort of a thing, as well as for the people that are on the call today, right? So just feel free to jump into the chat and make any comments or any questions that you have. Yeah. So what this is all about today is basically to try and give people some insight into some practicalities and to share some experience around what's involved with ramping up advisory. So this is for people that are, either started or have already started and they're just trying to get some more traction in what they're doing, or maybe some deeper services with the clients, or in some way ramping up the amount of advisory done in terms of their practice, right? Now, Mark, that's all about, you guys with the GET program are all about trying to make that easy. Okay, so that's why you're on the show. And so in terms of today's program, we're thinking about, hey, let's understand these business owners a bit better. Like who are we working with here actually, right? Let's have a think about what we need to understand about ourselves. And then some strong recommendations from ourselves, around getting some traction, and potentially a possible sort of like a call to action in terms of some stuff that you can then join if you're interested, right? So again, Mark, welcome to the show, and great to have you here. Love to see you smile anytime. I've been enjoying all the association with the GAP community since I joined last year, and I'm really looking forward to stepping that up. Okay, so that's cool. So while we're here, guys, welcome. And can you let us know, just to start with, whereabouts on the advisory journey you are? In terms of, are you exploring advisory? Have you started, or have you been in it for a while? Could you just give us some clues there?
And while they're doing that, Douwe, I just for everybody who might not know who you are, maybe just give a brief intro of yourself and your background for people.
Yeah, good point. Okay, a little bit about me. I'm a business coach and advisor. Been doing that for quite some time. That was built on a journey of running businesses for 25 years or so. Prior to that, had owned my own businesses, successfully exited those, and then decided what do I do with all that knowledge and experience, and then I decided to go down the advisory route. The advisory route brought me to the coaching, and now I'm combining both. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I live in the middle of the North Island. I work with clients all around New Zealand and some in Australia.
I had my own accounting firm for nearly 20 years. The last 10 years of that, I was doing structured advisory, had a team of 40 people. So I definitely was ramping it up. Certainly didn't have the content that's in the GAP. I wrote a lot of the content that is now in the GAP. And it was a real mindset shift needed to move into the advisory in a scalable way. And Douwe, we're going to talk quite a bit about mindset a bit later on, but in your experience, what are some of the barriers that are getting in the way of people getting started or ramping up the advisory that we need to sort of help people with? And maybe pop it in the chat. What are some of the barriers you might have, those of you who are listening in?
What's in the way? It's the same with business owners and the same with accountants that I work with. Quite often it is the mindset that's in the way, right? But anyway, we don't want to give all the good stuff away right this very minute. I think, but I've come across, in my business advisory journey, it was very much to start with around making plans, around making, great business plans, and developing those with customers. And then 3 or 4 months later, you would come back and saying, okay, how'd you get on? And then nobody would have done anything, Mark. And so the point that brought me a lot to trying to understand what would make people actually do what they want to do. So, or what they say they're committed to, or what get them more committed to, what would get them actually into action. So I moved over my journey and the advisory journey. We moved a lot further towards coaching. and based on the advisory piece. And that is how I work with people quite long term, and also at quite reasonable monthly fees, to be able to continually add value to people that you work with.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? How, I mean, I'm just putting my accountant hat on now and thinking, and I wonder if this is true for people now who are on the call, but every year we'd meet with the clients and go through their annual accounts, and we'd write some things down of things that they were going to do, or ways that they could present the accounts better to us the following year. Or we'd give them feedback on their GST return, and how they could do things better. And just nothing changed. It was the same stuff, different year would come back. And so that helped me to realize that there's a reason why people don't do what they say they're going to do. And it could be that they don't understand what's needed. Could be that they're just too busy. Could be it's not a priority to them. They don't see what's in it for them. But generally speaking, at the time when they agree to do something, whether it's a business plan or whether that's to reconcile their Xero file more often, or whether it's to present their records in an electronic format rather than a shoebox, they at the time, they intend to deliver on that. They intend to take the action, but something gets in the way, and it just doesn't happen. So I think, yeah.
I think, one of the things that's important there, I suppose, is that they are actually busy operationally a lot. They're very busy, and they wear lots of different hats. So even if they do intend to do something tomorrow, they quite often don't make that happen. Now, that could straight out be a time management issue. But if you're working in an operational environment with actual clients that are ringing up and doing things, and things are happening, you've got to really deeply understand where these people are operating at. Like, they're actually spending a lot of time in their business, and generally 50 or 60 hours a week. So there's not, in terms of their philosophy, there's not a lot of extra time. So in terms of the clients you're working with, and I think we'll feel that for ourselves as well. We're all busy, right? And then so it's gonna then depend on how committed they are to the outcome. And even though they think they might want something, it might actually then depend on how committed they are to it. So if you, so we all start with the end goal in mind. Okay, so the person's why, and we talk about, what is your personal vision 5 years out, and actually really develop that. And I put more and more over time. I put more and more emphasis on that, so that we're always clear why we're doing the extra effort, right? Why it's not just about money, right? It's not just about the business. It's about the freedom it can give, right? And then actually trying to achieve that freedom and actually make these things real for people, even while they are doing the growing. So once people really connect with their goals, and I mean really connect with the goals, and actually get in the habit of making some steps towards those things, then they get all of a sudden they get another lift of burst of energy, and then the commitment level seems to change and increase as time goes along, right? And that is part of habit forming, I suppose, and it's part of actually awareness increase. And you can do that on purpose, and I can make that a point, right? Rather than going directly, hey, okay, we can make another 20 grand this year. Okay, that's interesting, but that doesn't mean anything to me, because I want to actually just go and see my daughter's sports games on Saturdays. Right, okay, well, in that case, there is a non-financial target there as well as a financial target. So let's see how we can achieve both, right?
And there's a nice way to link that in. I mean, accountants are very good at understanding the numbers, and so my recommendation is always start with the numbers. Let's look for that financial freedom first. But the actual motivator for people is, as you say, very different. It's not about the money, it's about the choices that they will have if they have that money. So if we start with the numbers and say, let's say, for example, we're using the value gap calculator, and we're in an annual accounts review meeting, and we're having a conversation around debtor days or margin, and we show that by lifting the margin by 1 or 2%, then that might add 20 grand to the bottom line. And a great question or conversation to get into is, so what? So what if you can have 20,000 more on your bottom line? What would that mean you could do? And then so then they might say, well, then I would be, I'd have more money to be able to either pay off my loan, or let's say they were going to use that money to employ somebody else. Well, so what if you could employ someone else? oh, then I could, work 40 hours a week rather than 60 hours a week. So what? If you're working 40 hours a week, so what? Oh, well, then I could go to my children's sports. Right. Okay. So if we made a goal around this lifting the GP, that's going to mean you're going to be able to go to the school sports days whenever you want to. How would you feel? So the buy-in to the change, the buy-in to the goal is so much greater, isn't it? I mean, this is what you talk a lot about, Douwe, and the way you're recommending people talk to clients way beyond the numbers, right?
Like way beyond. And I think even when I started in the advisory, I started with an outfit called Sexton Armstrong. There was like a club of 70 different consultants around Australia and New Zealand. And it's very business orientated, it was bringing the corporate business planning down to a small business. It was trying to apply those systems to it. Half of it didn't apply. It was a great system. I still use the bones of it, and I recognize the bones of that in the GAP platform as well, Mark. Right, all the best practice bits, but it needs to be applied and be made relevant to small business owners, right? And they don't know all these things when they go into business. So the business, there's a lot of arms and legs to running a business, and then in terms of advisory, then you also need a lot of arms and legs to put that all together and to be relevant at the different times that is needed. So I think in terms of, we look at it in terms of an ROI approach, right? Like we got the GAP calculator, for example, the GAP. That's a relevant tool. I've used that with clients, and in the past also similar tools, to find out where things could be improved. I apply a similar one in terms of the personal goals. Like actually put value on these things, and have them inside as much as the financial goals. And I think then you start to link. Why are we doing this sort of thing? And then when they're actually working hard in the business, our motto is right behind me, like love your business. If you don't love your business, go and do something about it. And that might include, it is all about change, and it's all about moving and really living in the moment. And the business should be fun, and it should be an enjoyable exercise, and it should tick off all the boxes for you. And it's your business, and that's why people go into business. And I'm sure some of those attending here are also feeling they're in business for themselves with a mission, right? And it goes beyond what you do directly, right?
I think one of the things too is that when we think about moving beyond the numbers and into what are the drivers for business owners, if we started off by selling them time freedom, they probably wouldn't buy.
No,
because they haven't made the connection yet that they need financial freedom to give them the choice to then have time freedom. So we have to, and the great thing about this is we have to show them the money. So showing them the ROI shows them the choices that they could make with that change. And so what's really important, I think, is that we just start having conversations with clients around goals. What are they trying to achieve? When they started in their business, make more than I was making when I was earning wages. But then it's like, okay, so the so what question. So what would you do if you achieve that goal? What would you be able to do? And then you start to, often people talk about the 5 whys. Why is that important, and why? And if we keep asking why type questions, why would you want to do that? And then we start to uncover the real reasons behind why they want that financial return. People don't want to just be rich for the sake of rich. They have something else that they want to achieve, and the financial ROI is the way you make it easier for them to buy from you. If you can show them the money, that takes away the barrier that they might have around spending money or investing money with you to give them a different outcome. So we just have to get better at opening up those conversations. Douwe, in your experience, what would make a business owner consider advisory or coaching services?
Because I work a lot directly with clients, and then I sometimes see them in the accounting setting, right? And I can hear sometimes how accountants speak to my clients, right? Because we do those meetings together. And I also know intimate stories from what clients expect from their accountants, right? And then sorry, what was your question again?
Yeah, so why would a business owner consider advisory or coaching?
Because like if they have an idea, because you're dealing with entrepreneurs, right? You're dealing with people that if they can see an opportunity, as long as it's half price makes sense to them, they're actually quite likely to go and try and find out if this actually gets a payback.
Mm.
And so they actually don't mind spending money on getting somewhere. And that's one thing that I actually had to get convinced of, that if people see a business case for themselves, and that could be including their financial target or their non-financial targets, right? If they can see a case. So the first step is to actually try and uncover a bit of a case, right? And it doesn't have to be the be all and end all, and your business could be the $1 million or the $2 million thing, right? Just it needs a step that they can sort of contemplate and they can sort of see. And it's all about enthusiasm of what could be. And then the discovery process that you just highlighted this before, right? Those are coaching questions, actually, most of them. They're not advisory questions, okay?
Yeah.
So I find sometimes the thing that you need to do is trying to position yourself right from the start as a partner. So you're not sitting there across the road like you and me now talking to each other, right? You're sitting on the table and you're facing the same way. And we are together going to do this, right? So so what makes them think about coaching or seeing you as a potential person to do that with, right? Or it is things like how you position yourself in terms of in terms of the relationship, right? So potentially they might have to speak into things like what their clients actually directly see. They have a certain idea of what an accountant is, right? And even though we might want to see ourselves as advisors, they might not necessarily see that. Like, I mean, I know clients of mine that say they go to the Holy Communion once a year, right? And then they have my meeting with the accountant once a year. And I may or may not be involved in that meeting, but the point is, it's one thing that happens once a year, and then mainly it's about tax, and then mainly it's about how we're doing, okay, right? And then they'll go another year with me, right? So the idea sometimes it is about, hey, we can do more with you, right? We can, like, opening the door to this idea that we are interested in you on a different level, right? Now that sometimes is actually already something that the clients don't know or not realize or don't necessarily have contemplated in the past. So first of all, then it probably depends a bit more on ourselves. Are we already on that mindset in terms of that we can add value somewhere along the line, and then transferring that to the client that you're working with.
Yeah, I remember when I started on my advisory journey, I was quite fearful. I'll be totally honest. It was like, oh, will my clients buy this from me? I'm not sure. And so I created this meeting called the client nurturing meeting, and it's not called that anymore because I wrote about it to a client. And I said, I'm going to have a client nurturing meeting, and it was a GP who came in and he said, right, I'm here for you to do the breastfeeding. I was like, right, okay, I better not do that. And then someone else misspelt it in the letter, and instead of nurturing meeting, it was the client neutering meeting. So I thought, okay, well, that's definitely not going to have people coming in for that. But I digress. The concept was the complimentary client review meeting.
Yeah.
And I did that because I wanted to reposition the way I wanted to work with my clients in a different way. So they had in their mind, and I reinforced that every year by having an annual accounts review meeting. I was reinforcing an annual Holy Communion, come in and see me, and they would walk out of there and they go, well, I didn't get telling off this year, and and for me, I felt like a bit of a leech. I felt like I was taking their money and not adding any value. So I wanted to add value. So first up for me, it was a mindset shift that I wanted. Then there was an education piece where I was completely honest with my clients, and I said, look, for the last 10 years, we've been meeting, or however long we've been working together, we'll go through the annual accounts with you, and at the end of the meeting, you'll pull out a list of 3 or 4 things, and there's not enough time for us to delve into those. And we never get to the nitty-gritty. We never get to talking about what your goals are and what your problems and challenges are. And we're never creating space to combine your expertise with my expertise to make a better business for you. And so I want to work with my clients who want to work with me in a completely different way. And are you open to doing that? And they were like, oh, I can't believe this. I remember one of my contracting clients, who's a roading contractor, and I said to him, look, I want to do a piece of work for you. It's going to, and this was a tax review, but it was the beginning of an advisory piece. And I told him the price for it. I said $6,000, and he burst out laughing. And I was like, oh, jeepers, I was crestfallen. I thought, oh, he's laughing. The price is so ridiculously high. He said, I've been working with accountants for 20 years, and this is the first time I've had a quote. And yet my entire business, I quote for everything. I have to talk about, put it at risk every time. And he said, $6,000, that's a bargain. And he signed up. So I carried this fear into it, which had stopped me from doing this. I carried some assumptions, but worse, what I was doing, my activity every year, was reinforcing a message to them that that's all I offered. All I offered was annual accounts and tax. So I had a real job to reinvent myself and talk to my clients about why I'd changed. And in the end, on the back of my business card, I wish I'd kept them, because I talk about this a lot. On the back, I had my brand promise, which was make more money, pay less tax, and have a great lifestyle, which was the leaning into these 3 freedoms.
Yeah.
And that reminded me to constantly talk in language that the clients would understand. But there's definitely there's a reinvention of yourself, isn't there, Douwe?
There totally is. And I think that is a good segue to start talking about what we need to do. But maybe just to finish off, what could people, what in your opinion, what sort of thing have you come across where people actually say, hey, look, I'd love to do this, Mark, but I have no time, or there's no way I can afford this. How do you get across those things?
Yeah, that's a great question. Look, I think first up, let's not assume that that's what people are going to say, and that stops us from having the conversation, because that's the first barrier, is getting over it ourselves. The second thing is, if we're going to offer coaching services or accountability or more regular meetings with our clients, we ought to be having the same ourselves. We ought to have, I had a coach myself, and so it was very easy for me to recommend what I already was doing with my clients. So like, I'm proud to say I spent over $60,000 a year with a coach, and we're not recommending you do that at all, but that was what transformed my business quickly. I was stuck. I was working really long hours. I went to the UK to my grandmother's funeral. I was coming home. I was thinking, what did I learn from my granny? Loved her to bits. For me, it was, family was first. And I had a core value at my accounting firm, family first. Strong families are the foundation of strong businesses. And I was thinking, well, what sort of a father and a husband am I being? I need to change the way I'm working. So that was my main motivation. But I think to get back to why would clients want to buy this? What's stopping them from buying it? First up, we've got to get rid of our own assumptions, but we've also got to find the motivation button for them. What is it that's going to drive change for them? What are their pain points? For me, what motivated me to take on coaching was that I was working really long hours and not being a great family man, right? So that was my motivation. It wasn't about the money, it was about the time. So if we can ask questions of our clients in an annual accounts review meeting or in a regular meeting with our clients about what their goals and how business is going compared to what they thought it would be like, and start to unpick their level of dissatisfaction, then you're going to tap into the motivation for change. Another example of this, I had a drain laying client, and I asked him, how's business going at the beginning of the annual accounts review meeting? He said, oh, no, it's going great. I said, are you getting plenty of time to do the things that you want to do? Yeah, yep, absolutely fine. And it talked on for a bit. And then his wife, who was sitting next to him, started crying. And I was like, oh my God, how do I deal with this? I haven't even got tissues in my office. But she she said, you know, we've got 3 children, 3 young children. Ryan's always working really long hours. The business is hugely successful, and I'm really pleased with that. But I really would like to have some time away from the children. And it turned out that her motivator was she wasn't fit. She wanted to get fit. So she set a goal to run the New York Marathon. And it took a couple of years to get to the point where she did that. And then the photo that I had from her on the finish line, you know, it still makes me quite emotional to think about it. You know, the photo with the 3 children, arms round her children at the end of the New York Marathon. It was like, that's the sort of, that was the gold. And when you tell a story like that, that transformed Ryan's working. They stayed as profitable as they were anyway. He just put his prices up. He looked at his margins. He had to think differently about how he was running his business, so he could give Kate time to do the training, and he had time. So he had better relationships with his children, all that sort of thing. But what would the barrier have been? Maybe they wouldn't have seen me as the catalyst or me as the person who could help them make that change. Yeah. So that's why I think we need to lean into the financial ROI first to give them the confidence, but very quickly you'll realize that it's not about the money. Sorry, that was a really long-winded answer to that question.
No, that is true. And so if you're walking into that, it's just a matter of just easing off and just going back over the steps that you obviously didn't quite cover enough. And then there's always opportunity to have another catch-up about it, right? And to touch it up. Yeah. And to actually, I find stories help a lot, Mark. And that have to come out of be real stories. They help a lot to picture that future that can be done. Hope, people wanting hope, right? And they want to understand that we're talking to somebody that understands that there is a gap between the now and the where they would like to be. Okay. So and
also I think the key thing on this too is what you're talking about, sitting side by side at them, not across the table.
Yeah.
You know, we set some goals there that started with combining my expertise. We looked at the margin, and we didn't have the value gap calculator, so we've got that now. We would have been able to work out, okay, so to make 180,000 with working less hours, you know, we would have gone into the ROI piece, and we'd said, what does the hourly rate need to be? And if you could have, you know, 1 more full-time equivalent person, what would the hourly rate need to be in order to get to where you need to be? So you could have used the value gap calculator for that. So that was my expertise. But the how-to was also Ryan's expertise. He started pricing with more confidence. He reviewed his pricing tool. We came up with those ideas together. Yes. But he actually did the work behind it. So it wasn't, I didn't have to come up with the how-to. We worked on it together. I think that's an important thing. We don't have to have all the answers as the code.
Yeah. Hey guys, let us know what you're getting out of this so far, just in the chat. It'd be cool. And we'll move on a little bit. A little story on that partnering thing. What I do when I meet with people, I will always wait until they sit down. I'll ask them to sit down. I put my bag somewhere, but then actually, instead of going to sit where my bag is sitting, I'll go and sit next to them or across the table. So, you know, in the cafe for a setting, for example, I would sit on the side of the table of you. And I do that on purpose, Mark. And I explain to them why I do that. And I say, this is the positioning. I could be sitting like this, or I can be sitting in your chair, or we could sit like this. You know, so explain that partnership concept. And quite often people are used to sitting across the table from each other, literally, and that destroys that energy. And so you can use that literally as an example and saying, hey, this is how I'd like you to see me from now on, right? And this is how this is how we work, you know?
Yeah.
Asking lots of questions. Yes, perfect. It is about questions.
It is, and it's about the questions to ask. Is that it's a skill set. It's a skill set to learn the questions to ask. I mean, I had a lot of help with how to do that, you know. So 5 whys is a questioning technique. So what is a sales technique. The formula for change, that's a really powerful one. Douwe, I'm sure you have multitudes of mindsets that you'd be referencing, right? You talked before about
I would,
be, do, have. Well, talk about the be, do, have. We were talking about that briefly.
Oh, yes. Well, I love that one particularly. I told you that a couple of times, I think. But it's just a really good one. You know, it comes out of well-researched areas. But people need to be a certain person before they can get the results. Okay, so the issue is about the opportunity here is people think that they can change the outside and then my result will be different and then I will be happy. But unfortunately, it's the other way around. You know, any therapist will tell you that you change, then you will do the right thing that belongs to the person that you actually are, and then the results will start showing up for themselves. In business, of course, the usual thinking is about, okay, if I get to this turnover, then I'll be happy. But the only thing what happened was you got busier, and the thing became more unwieldy, right? And you didn't reach anything particularly. Okay, so how do I now aspire to be different as a person, to get different results, and to actually do the things I know I need to do? So that's a really good one. When I'm talking to that with clients, they do get it. They definitely get that. And
I think I'll give a couple of examples of that. So be, do, have instead of have, do, be. So people would normally say, when I have more time, so think about Kate's example, the marathon, right? So when I have more time, i.e. the children are at school, I'll be able to do things like go for a run when the children are at school. So I will not even thinking about the be, who does she need to be, right? So the goal, that the have thing at the end is to run the marathon, right? So if we turned that on its head and said, who did Kate need to be? Kate needed to see herself and be a runner. And if she is a runner and sees herself as a runner, then what would she be doing? She would be going for a run every day. And so if she goes for a run every day for a year, she could do a marathon. You know, that's conceivable that she could do a marathon. So the have piece at the end doesn't need to be the focus. And I'll give you another example. I saw this on LinkedIn, so I know he's happy to share it publicly. James Ashford has a company in the UK, or had a company in the UK called Go Proposal, built it up over the years and sold to Sage a couple of years ago, a big outfit in the UK. And so he posted that he was dreaming of this thing in the future when he was going to get the big paycheck and the big payout from selling his business, which he got. And he got the earn out time that he had to prove the business, that sort of thing. And then he's just come out of a deep bout of depression. He's writing about this black hole that he's been in, because he wasn't thinking about who he would be, or what the identity that he would have beyond owning that business. So I think that in the case of Ryan, or that contractor that I was talking about, the roading contractor, the identity we needed to think about, well, who those people need to be. So in Ryan's case, more of a family man and a businessman, rather than just the businessman, the provider for the family. Yeah. So I think, and again, we're talking about this quite briefly, Douwe, but it's
very obviously. I mean, I can talk about this for hours. But the thing is, of course, if you're missing that, if you think my role is I'm an accountant, I'm a financial advisor, if that's where you're coming from, that's only, in my view, something like 20-30% of the piece of the puzzle. You know, we're moving into advisory that needs to take a back seat a little bit, right? To get effect with it, to be able to make it effective, to be able to implement some of the advice that you think, the direction that it needs to go, right? So you need to be able to be comfortable about talking about things that are could be quite personal, right? It's not necessarily about marathons. It could be about marriage breakups. It could be about trauma. It could be about all sorts of things you might not feel comfortable about. Okay, so anyway, that's my mind just to spin onto some actual examples of what stuff that's going on with some of my clients, and so that you are dealing with these things. Okay, just to say. Okay.
I mean, we started this conversation thinking about the skill sets that you can learn to be able to do this. So yeah. I didn't wake up one morning and just suddenly think, oh, be do have, I'm going to be a great father and great business person, and therefore start doing advisory work and allocate the annual accounts work to my team. That took a lot of time. I needed to unpick what that was like. But in terms of identity now, I identify as you know, somebody who empowers other people. So I see myself as a change agent. So I'm always thinking my activities and the things that I do are about how do I change people, help them to see the change that's needed so they can do this more advisory work. And one of the core values of mine is empowerment. So I believe in you. I believe in all of you on this call that you can do this. You can absolutely do it. What you need to do is think about who you need to be, who do you need to show up as, and how do you reinvent yourself as so much more than the accountant? I see that as the key that unlocks the door. It gives you the credibility to have the conversation around how you can unlock the cash, the profit, the cash flow, the business value, unlock that door so that you can help your clients achieve what's really important to them, which isn't really about the money. All right, so that's not something you're going to learn overnight. It's a journey that we're going on, and that we constantly need to be learning.
So I think, Mark, you know, if we look back at our clients, we would like them to go on a change journey, right? Because we can see potential, and we can see that things could be different, and we would like to help. But then quite often we actually need to go through that same transition. And then by the time you realize what is happening, it's actually an ongoing journey, right? And then I've been in a big workshop once, and this guy said, at breakfast, this dude said, look, I just hate coaches when they talk about journeys. Like, and of course, by the time it came to the big presentation, I said, look, you know, I just called them by name, and I said, I know you hate me talking about journeys, but it is a journey. Okay, it's not just that, hey, I'm going to do this one day. And then because once you're on the road, you see all these other potential things, and you just get better and better and bigger and bigger, right? So it's growth. It's a massive growth, personally. Now, what I would like to know in the chat, guys, is what are you motivated by? What would be your drivers to actually really step up in advisory? If you can just ask the question sort of in between. It's a big question, but just try and put some thought into it. It's quite obvious, obviously, that this all involves change, right? Change is by nature, everybody wants to change, right? Hands up. Okay. Who's prepared to do what it takes? And then all of a sudden the interest wanes. Okay. Why is that, Mark? Why is that?
Yeah, I mean, I want to have a six-pack, but I don't want to have to do the work. I don't want to have to go to the gym.
Okay.
Haven't worked out how yet, but so at the moment I go to the gym. Yeah.
You look pretty fit, so you must be doing it. Okay, good.
Tanya, I love your comment there about being taken over by AI. Look, I'm not a doom and gloom merchant. I've been in this industry. I've been a chartered accountant for over 30 years. People have always been talking about automation. They've always been talking about accountants being made redundant. They've always been talking about some prediction that there would be 19 accountants in New Zealand by 2030, a little while ago. Some ridiculous things out there. The thing about AI that I want to share with you is that AI is just a way to increase the effectiveness of what you're doing. There's never going to be a substitute for bespoke help for a client, one-on-one, side-by-side, at the table. AI cannot do that.
No.
But can AI prepare a set of annual accounts? Yes, probably. But can AI choose the tax angles that are appropriate for that client's situation, i.e. the bespoke piece? Probably not. Or if it is, it'll be horribly wrong. So I wouldn't be fearful of AI. I would embrace AI as a way of increasing your effectiveness of your communication, the efficiency of the way you do things, to free you up to have better conversations and better relationships with your clients. But if that's your driver, that's cool. That's kind of like if there's a formula for change. So the formula for change is resistance to change on one side. Okay, and we've got to overcome the resistance. So we have the dissatisfaction with the status quo. We have the vision for what's possible, and we think about the first steps that we need to take. Those are all the things that we need to do. So if the dissatisfaction is around the risks to do with AI, that's as much of a motivator to get us over the resistance. But if we can add to that the vision of what would be possible if we could have change conversations with clients, if we could influence their bottom line, we could free up their time, and all we needed to do was take a first step, which was to have better conversations with clients, to meet with them more, and to hold them to account, then we're going to overcome that resistance, right? So it starts with who we need to be. It starts with an element of dissatisfaction, an element of vision of what's possible, and being clear on what the first steps are. Turn that on its head, do the same equation for our clients. They have resistance currently. Maybe they don't want to pay for this because they're struggling financially. Maybe they don't think they've got the time, whatever their resistance is. Let's ask them some dissatisfaction questions. You know, the Ryan and his wife, who's never got time, Ryan's never with his children, and Kate can never go for a run. That's a dissatisfaction. If that carries on for a long period of time, what will life be like? The vision questions. How would you feel if you were coming across the finish line at the New York Marathon and your children were there to greet you? Wow, that's a powerful question. You know, what are the first steps? We just need to think, well, how do we lift the margin sufficiently in the business to enable us to employ another person so Ryan can reduce his hours? So that formula for change, that's a mindset. It's something you can learn. It's something you then you wouldn't write that formula out for your clients. You learn some questioning techniques through that, just as you learn
I actually write that formula out, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
you do with your client?
Yeah, I'd say this is a formula.
Oh, great.
Because I tell you what, people actually want to be convinced to do it.
Yeah.
They just
True.
say, I can see that there's some resistance here. I get it. And we'll talk into it. You know, there's no, why do we have to hold the tool? Just go bang, there's it is. Okay. Let's put it in. Let's develop it together. That's the partnership approach, right? So people actually want to discover, they actually want to move. They just need to be clear of what they need to get across. And then, of course, what people actually like about some of these things is that if it's in small actions, I can take the small actions. I just can't see the big things. You know, the big thing is overwhelming. Okay, so just show me that there is a bigger thing at the end, and we'll repeat and repeat. But give me the small stuff that I need to do now, that I can tick off, right? So part of that coaching generally is about actually bringing it down to size, to chunks that they can actually conceptualize, right? Hey, so we sort of really quickly went through how we need to be, okay, and quickly realized, I suppose, it is basically what we're expecting our clients to be. We need to be ourselves, right? Key ingredient I find is commitment. Like, how committed are we actually to actually making the changes that we need to make, right? Could I ask just a quick question to everybody? What's your level of commitment right now, out of 10, 10 being definitely awesome, I'll do it tomorrow, to 0 fat chance, right? I don't know. What is the level of commitment, okay?
And that's a great question, because that's a question we should be asking our clients as well.
Yes.
You know, what's their level of commitment to?
And I do. And this is, we do this, we test things like the mindset piece, where we test, hey, how are you showing up? How have you been showing up over the last week or so? Okay, out of 10. But I also ask them about commitment to the goals there. Are we still equally committed? Right?
Yeah.
So that I'm not the more committed one. I'm not more committed to your goals than you are yourself. Okay, I just want to test that.
Yeah.
And that gets it back on the page, right? So being able to actually ask these questions powerfully, the simple questions, and I never coach an answer out of 10. Okay.
I think that, and thanks for sharing, Tanya, always taking steps towards us. I think if we go back to that formula for change, the dissatisfaction, the vision, and the first steps need to be small.
Yeah.
For the client and for ourselves. If we were on this call now saying, you know, you need to invest $60,000 in coaching, you'd all tell me, what planet are you coming from? So I didn't start by spending 60,000. I started by doing an org chart. I did spend 20,000, by the way. That's my first step, was 20 grand, but I'm probably a little bit unusual. What is the first step for your client to take? Maybe it's a cash flow profit improvement meeting for, you know, $450 or something like that, when you've shown them in the annual accounts review meeting that they could be making 20 grand. So that's an easy first step. For you, what is your first step that you're going to take after this call? So we've got to think, what's the easy first step that we're going to take? And then who's going to hold us to account to make sure that we do that? And I would ask that question in the client nurturing meeting, which became the complimentary client review meeting, who's going to hold you to account? And often the husbands would say, oh, my wife, or vice versa. And I'd say, oh, yeah, that's great. And so what happens when you don't do it? And the husbands would usually say, oh, I'm going to get a serious telling off, and that's not nice. And the wife might say, well, oh, no, he'll let me off, like this. And I said, look, come on, let's be real. You're not going to hold each other to account. You're going to be sympathetic to the situation, and you'll go, there, it's all okay. So we're not committed, as you were saying before, Douwe, we're not committed to holding each other to account when things get tough. It's very easy to say you're committed now, but how well are you committed when you're up to here with work and you've got 101 other things to do? Commitment levels can drop right off. So that's when the accountability piece comes in, which is the way you should be talking to your clients as well. Because it's just real. If you say you're going to go for a run, and you're going to go for a run with somebody else at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, you'll show up. But if you say to yourself, I'm going to get up at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, and it's hosing down with rain at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, and you didn't say it to anybody else, you didn't promise to meet somebody, you won't go, unless you're crazy. But yeah, so that's human nature, right?
So let's try and come up with a bit of a formula. If I ask you now, I think we get the coaching piece here, right? But what do you think in terms of what ingredients do I need to have? What is a success formula in terms of if I would do these 3-4 things, I should start getting some traction on in terms of stepping up my direction.
So for me, it would start with the commitment level. What is the change that you want to make? So who do you need to be? That be do have mindset. Maybe link it to your purpose. What are you trying to achieve? So for me at the Gap, it's advisory made easy. It's the purpose. The identity for me is about being the empowerer, the enabler. So that see myself as an enabler. So I agree to come on to a webinar like this because my identity is an enabler and my purpose is advisory made easy. So there's a perfect fit for what I'm doing. So I would like you to think about, what's your identity? Who do you need to be? And what's your purpose? And then think about what are the first steps that you need to take, and make those steps quite small. And I mean, it's about, I went and listened to James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits. I went and saw him up in Auckland last year. And he talked about, don't underestimate the value of the environment that you put yourself in to enable change to happen, right? So many of you are part of the Gap community, and this isn't about the Gap. It's just when you surround yourself with other people going on the same journey, then it's more likely that's going to happen. If you work with Douwe and a group of other people who are on the same journey, the chances are you'll be influenced by that, and that will help you to get to where you need to go. So for your clients, if they surround themselves with experts and they meet with you, then that's more likely that they're going to get the outcomes that they want, because they're surrounding themselves, they're creating an environment for change. So we have to create that environment. I'm not sure if I answered the question there, Douwe.
Well, I was thought, because I joined the Gap platform for a reason, right? In the community, for the community aspect for starters, and the platform, because I think it actually makes advisory, let's say advisor and coaching, but let's stick with advisory, easy. The delivery part is easy. It's doable. It makes something that is actually quite, if you had to develop all that for yourself, it'd take years and years and years and years. So here's access to a platform and a community to get that implemented, right? So I would say that'd be one strong part of a success formula in this direction, right? At least investigate it.
I mean, I think the second part for me about the success formula was, I mentioned that I took on a coach. So if you don't currently have a coach, the Gap is not a coaching organization. We make that super clear. We're a platform to help you market, sell, and deliver advisory. We'll show you how to. But we've already talked about examples and stories about people who wouldn't have done things if they didn't have the coaching. I wouldn't have done what I did without the coaching. I'm sure, Douwe, you wouldn't have got to where you are now without coaching either. No. We've got our strategy session for the Gap next Monday and Tuesday in Auckland. I'm just before this call, I was working on the pre-work for that. So I'm recommending I'm recommending what I do myself. I'm practicing, and that's one of our core values, walk the talk. We practice what we teach. So step 2 would be, if step 1 is get the tool to toolkit, which is the gap. Many of you are already part of the gap, so that tick that box. Getting a coach, absolutely essential, because you're not going to do the things, not because you don't want to, and not because there's not a level of commitment, just because without the coaching, you haven't got somebody sitting side by side. You haven't got that synergy of 1 + 1 = 5. And also, if you recommend it to your clients, you'll be able to talk about what you do. You're recommending what you do yourself. So if you don't see the value in coaching enough to do it yourself, it's a pretty hard sell to sell that to your clients. And so that's why at the Gap, we recommend that people get coaching. Not because there's anything in it for us at the Gap, it's just because it's best practice. And because if you want to recommend that to your clients, you ought to be doing it yourself. So that would be step 2 in the success formula. And step 3 probably for me would be around experts. Surround yourself with experts. Coming to events like this, that's you've got some experts in the room. Douwe, how many years have you been doing this work for?
This particular work, probably about 12 years now.
Yeah. So
I've got quite a large network of people that I work with and are associated with, and that I know what they do. That takes a bit of time to build up, but you got to be a little bit careful with it as well, Mark, in terms, because you're working with your clients, and what do you recommend? You need to make sure that it's tested and good value and so on, right? Not somebody you just met at BNI. But because the advantage we have as accountants and bookkeepers is you actually the clients are already working with some expertise people around themselves, right? So it's more about you connecting with their network and seeing who's who and what's what, but definitely experts around you for yourself and for your clients.
I remember one of the really great references that you've got for the work that you do from Maisie Harris, I think it is, Nathan Maisie. He got you to go in and do a piece of work for one of his clients because you had that sort of vertical expertise in the industry that client was in. So that's about surrounding yourself with experts as well. Think about many of you on this call, I'm sure, have expertise for tax advice. So where's the network of experts that you have for helping on the advisory journey? And I mean, the Gap's part of that as well. But and then obviously building your skills is the next thing. So Tanya, you've said you're always on the journey. Absolutely, this is the journey to constantly improve those skills. So how do we do that? How do we build our skills? I do a lot of reading. I listen to a lot of podcasts. When I read a book, I haven't got any right in front of me, but there's a lot on my shelf behind me, as you can see, and they've all got like little post-it notes all the way through them with things that I need to remember so that I can share what I've learned. So it's about building those skills, and for me it was about building skills outside my technical expertise. My technical expertise with tax and accounting was fine. I'd had years of training on that, but I had very little skill development on communication styles, do we talk about the value of understanding people's personality types, for example, because I know that's a huge thing that you get involved with, right?
Yeah, I do. And I got involved with that because I really wanted to understand other people myself, but also for my clients, okay? And different personality types, more like different preferred communication styles and how people prefer to communicate powerfully. What styles are, and understanding those very clearly. And again, you need to experience it yourself to be able to talk with other people about it, but it's massively powerful. All my clients use it, and they use it to employ staff, they use it to talk to their customers, they use it to sales processes, they use all the skills associated. All my programs included, for example, I will spend 2 or 3 sessions on that. It's very, very important, right? Hey, that's a success formula wrapped up. 4 parts. Join the Gap, get a coach, get expertise around you, and keep updating your skills and keep learning lifelong. Right? That's it. I think that probably wraps it up. If
Well, I think from my perspective, Douwe, you're selling yourself short here. I know that you're offering a workshop series off the back of this, and you're a humble guy, and you're not wanting to sell. You wanted to give value here.
Yeah,
but,
that's right. Yeah.
You know, but I think that what you are offering as an introduction to amplifying your advisory makes real sense. You know, it's a 3-part series. It's workshop. It's, you know, you're going to cover off, you know, how you can be bold in advisory, how you can be the ultimate advisor, and how you can grow your advisory sales. So for me, that's the next steps to lift your skills. At $300, it's an absolute bargain. It's a total no-brainer from my perspective. So I'd absolutely endorse this. I've spoken to a lot of people that have worked with you, Douwe. I know that that you do a good job on this. You're going to unpick the coaching mindsets. You're going to unpick the identity, the personality traits, the communication styles, and then you're going to unpick the sales skills. So for me, that would be, you know, when does it start? And tell us some more about this.
The first one be 8th of May, so it's not too far away, but you're not got a few weeks. I'd love to see some people there, and kicking off some other programs on the back of that. There's longer term programs in the making. I'm already running all these things for business people. It's just applying them to accountants and bookkeepers, Mark, right? So
nice.
But this particular workshop is a real good foundation for anybody thinking about or stepping up or actually really trying to get serious about this advisory piece, because it is a change, and it is involving yeah, it requires a lot of thinking. I think on a day, like probably every hour for the last 12 years. Okay, so it's not something that is a one-off piece, but this gives give a good foundation to actually say, okay, I get this now. Okay, now let's ramp this up.
No, that's great. I mean, I think when we talk about the formula for change again, and talk about the dissatisfaction, maybe the worry about AI, but maybe the worry about how much work we've got in front of us, the vision for what's possible to be able to have better conversation with clients, add value, potentially have fewer clients. First step for me is like, that's a no-brainer. I would be on that program myself, but I will be heading to the UK for 3 months. But otherwise, I assure you, I would have been on that program. So I don't think you can get a stronger endorsement than that. So
that's awesome, Mark. So we'll wrap up. Mark, thank you for being here this morning. Really appreciate it. Right, always enjoy doing a bit of work with you, and thank you for the endorsement and just of being of general value here during this webinar. Very awesome. Yeah.
Well, you're totally welcome, and I presume you will send out a link to that program off the back of this. So really appreciate. I think people will appreciate knowing how they can do that next step. So yeah, excellent. I really
awesome.
appreciate the opportunity. Thanks everybody.
I'll definitely follow up with an email and just be in touch, guys, if you're interested in anything, and just explore what is possible. So thanks very much, and have a great day.
Thanks everyone. Bye for now.
Bye.